Anita.
Hello.
Hey. Okay. I've got you.
Hi.
I've got you really loud. I'm gonna turn you down a little bit here.
Okay.
And awesome. Great. Great to finally have you. And we
Aw.
were chatting earlier in text. I haven't met you yet. This is my
Mm-hmm.
first time to actually meet you. And while I'm talking to you here, I'm gonna be resizing you and moving you around
Okay.
on the
Good.
screen here. But uh, really appreciate you coming on today. At such short notice, you reached out to me. You had reached
I
out to
wanted to
me.
talk to you
Yes, yes, and
because I'm a fan of
oh,
yours.
that's amazing. I was really
Because I think
excited
that
to
you're
hear
doing
from you.
such a great job, and you should never beat yourself up because you're a one-man band. You're hosting and bringing in the clips and bringing in the guests. And in a TV studio, you have people to do that for you, so you can just relax and host. But when you're an independent, you're doing everything. You're a one-man band,
Yes.
and I just admire you because you do it so well,
Well,
and
thank you.
good for you because you know when I was the director, the host just is the host. Okay, they just hosting the thing, reading the teleprompter, whatever, and the questions are all in there. I mean, they can think for themselves too, but the questions are all in there. We need to bring in guests. They've got producers telling them what to do, and I'd be framing the shot and then pressing the buttons and bringing the person in. But I've done what you do too, and you have to kind of all do it by yourself. And
Yes.
it just shows you how talented people are out there.
Well, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you. So,
Hmm.
for the audience that don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself and say what you used to do? Tell us what you used to do first, and then we'll go through the whole journey of
Okay.
of where we are now.
Well, okay. So I've been in broadcasting for many years. Like it's the only profession that I really know or feel like I can do, right?
Hmm.
So I worked at Global pretty much for 24 years. But during that time, I came and went. There were times where I freelanced and stuff, and then I went off and did other jobs, and I worked for City TV and CTV and Shaw, and then I also worked in radio. I worked for CKNW. I worked briefly for CFUN, if anybody remembers that around here in Vancouver.
I'm not
You don't
originally from out
remember?
here. I'm from Ontario originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I grew up in
So yeah, this
Windsor,
is
Ontario. So I grew up
oh,
with
okay.
Detroit TV. Like that's what I grew up
Cool.
with. Yeah, yeah, it was different.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. And we grew up with like KVOS and King 5. Like that was across the border for us, right? The
Hmm.
Seattle stations or whatever. So yes, I worked in radio briefly, and then I moved to New Zealand for a little bit with the family, and then I worked for Radio New Zealand there. I was a producer, and I worked at I produced a talk show there, a morning talk show or whatever. So, but primarily for about 24 years, I worked at Global News, and I was not a famous person.
That's a
Like,
long stint.
um,
That's a good amount of time to be with one organization.
yes, 24 years.
Wow.
Like
Since you were
I
like
started
a
when I was
teenage,
three.
since you were, yeah, you were like 3, right? You were just a
Yes,
baby. They
I was
hired you on
3.
child
That's what I
labor in
tell people.
Canada. Wow.
I I so I bloody well worked there for so long. I was an exemplary employee. I never let them down. I was a hardworking uh, individual for them, and I was a director. So I basically like directed the TV show. So the producers make the newscast, they editorially line up the newscast, and we execute it. And my job is not. I didn't have any editorial control. So whenever I do a podcast, I make sure that I tell people that, not that I'm like trying to cop out, but I'm just saying I don't make the show. So the producers line up the 6 o'clock news. So I just cut the cameras. Okay, so we're going to start on a 2 shot. It's going to be camera 2, like this. What's the next shot? Who's reading the next intro? It's all technical, technical, technical. Are we going to the helicopter next? Are we going to the legislative bureau chief next? Where are we going next? I just cut it all together, and make the show. So it's a very fast paced thing.
Hmm.
And so that was my job. It was basically a technical director in a control room. But when you sit there and you watch the 6 o'clock news at home, it would be myself and another guy, because they downsized so much. But anyway, it's myself putting those pictures to air
Right.
by pressing buttons, and that
It's a
was
fun
my
job
job.
though, right? Like
Yes.
it's hustle bustle. There's a lot going on. you
Yeah.
gotta nail it, you gotta cue it, you gotta make sure
Yeah.
that's coming next, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
wild. I think it's a lot
It's
of fun.
wild. It is wild. Like you run a story, let's say, oh, a barn burned down in Aldergrove today, blah, blah, blah. Bob Smith has the story or whatever, right? And then you roll the story
Yeah,
and
cut to
then
that.
cut to that, take it, and then say the story is 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Well, I time it. We used to, I was so old, I used to time it with a stopwatch, right? So you'd look at the stopwatch and then you'd say to the anchor in their ear, okay, 1 minute back to you, 30 seconds, 10, and then you count them down, then boom, go cue, and then they read the next intro, right? But while that story is going on, the barn fire story or whatever, you're going to what's next. What camera is it? Which anchor is it? Am I going to sports next? Where am I going next? Is it a live hit? And when you see the reporters out in the fields and you're like, okay, I'm coming to you in 2 minutes. And they're like, yeah, like this. And then sometimes it's like, I don't have my clip. I don't have this. My microphone broke or what, all that kind of
Yeah.
hustle and bustle. That's what a
So you
live
got to
newscast was.
reconfigure
Yeah.
the format like
Yeah.
as it's going because there's a technical
As it's
difficulty
going.
over there.
So then you'll say in the anchor's ear, we don't have Bob Smith. Move on to this. And you have to
Oh wow.
say it really clear. What's the next thing? Cue up the next thing. And it's like you sometimes have 5-10 seconds to make a decision when something craps out last minute. So that was the fun of it. That was the thrill of it and the excitement of it, and also probably the stress of it too. But that was all part of the job.
Yeah.
And so yeah. So
That's
that's the
amazing.
job I
That
did for
sounds
a
like
long
such
time.
a fun job to do. Like people watch
Yeah.
the news and they see things work in a linear fashion and they just assume that everything works like that. Like
Yeah.
as I got into broadcasting online, I mean I'm a one man show. I don't have all these
Yeah.
other cameras and stuff, but I've been bringing people
Yeah.
in for interviews. And this is
Yeah.
this is actually the first time to do it live, like on
Yeah.
the
Oh,
fly, and
yeah.
I'm like, whoa, enamored on how to also be the talent on screen as well as trying to do all this at the same time. So I get where you're coming from on that, but it's fun. I really enjoy doing it.
You'd probably be a very good director over there, right? Like, and you just have to focus on one thing. But us independents, we have to focus on so much with no help. Like we have no resources, and that's the thing that I see the most, right? That kind of makes me a little bitter sometimes. But it is very fun. But people have to keep in mind there's a lot you're thinking of when we roll in clips. When you're preparing a clip, you're doing all that and concentrating and hosting and trying to make a show. And this is something in TV that there's an army of people to help you with. But there's not in the independent world. It's just you.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
me.
you. But we have the power of being our own editor, and this is the thing that I
Yeah.
love, the freedom of it. And
Yeah.
I guess we could get into why you don't work for the industry anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really does come down to this because at the end of the day, people ask me
Hmm.
all the time. I was on Allison Morrow's channel yesterday, and
Hmm.
she was talking to me. She brought me on for Trudeau, the whole bit about Trudeau saying that he'd never forced
Oh
anyone
yeah.
into a vaccination. Like
Yeah.
what? Anyway, she brought me on for that, but then she asked like, what is the story with the news? Like, why are they really like lying? Are they all on board with this lie, or what is it? Are they in an echo chamber? What happens in the news that makes them all toe the line and go in this direction? And well, we're all seeing it now, but like everybody just kind of pontificates on what they think is the cause for the news to be so dishonest with us all the time. You've had a firsthand experience from it. You're out of the industry, you're not on an NDA, so you can talk about this. What is it really? Is it a conspiracy or is it a cultural thing?
Yeah. I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. And it's something that I never, ever saw before, ever. Since it was just so clear during COVID we're not going to report the other side of this story. Like, this is not going to happen. And how that happened, just as it is a mystery in your life, like with your friends and your neighbors, where some people still really believe it, that it saved them and all that. And you're like, how do you believe this? Like, just as much as it is in your personal life, it was kind of like that in the newsroom. Like, it was just something that I can't even describe it, like how it just permeated throughout the newsroom. Now, now I don't have any concrete evidence. We were never given an email. We were never given any wording or warning. At least I wasn't. I'm sure my bosses were told exactly from top down what to do and what not to talk about. But I can say personally, I never saw anything saying, don't you report on vaccine injury? Don't you dare report on medication for early treatment? Don't you dare report on the Wuhan laboratory? Don't you dare report on vitamin D and exercise. Don't you dare ever do a report on businesses shutting down. You just do the report as, and sadly, another business closed due to COVID. And literally, I don't know how many times the 5 o'clock anchor, I don't know how many times I did that show where she said that in the intro. And sadly, another business has closed down with no regard to go and send a reporter and tell a story as to why. Is this really a good idea?
Yeah.
And so there was no wording or email or anything that came down to say that. It just, I don't even know how it permeated, but it did. Okay. So somewhere, somebody must have known, you don't talk about certain medications, or you don't talk about this, or you don't talk about that. It was just a known thing. And so when I was in the newsroom as a director, nobody's asking me my opinion editorially on the stories. I'm just supposed to keep my mouth shut and put whatever I'm supposed to put on the air, right?
Hmm.
But I would chirp up and I would talk like in closed rooms with my friends. And sometimes I would talk openly in the newsroom, and that never went down well at all. And so one time I brought up hydroxychloroquine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, one of my cousins got COVID really, really bad, and she was already taking this medication because she already took it for another illness that she had. And she told me, I think I got better in like 8 days. She goes, she thought it made her feel better. And so that's valid. You think it makes you feel better. Okay. And there's all
But
these
YouTube's
rumblings.
terms of service would have me say, well, that's anecdotal and you can't really go by that. I mean, that's true.
Right.
And that's true.
Right. Okay. Yeah. True. You're on YouTube, so we have to be careful. But when I
Yeah, of
brought
course.
that up, people would be angry at me. The 6 o'clock main anchor would be like, "Oh, she thinks that you made her better." Like, who would ever say that? In what world
Oh, so
would you
this
ever
is
say
off
that?
camera. People are
Off camera.
so I
Yeah.
had a similar thing. So I was at work and I mentioned something about Joe Rogan to a colleague. And
Mhm.
it was off topic. It wasn't about the COVID or anything like that. And she's like, "Well, what does that guy know? He took horse paste."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh wow, this is crazy because this person is not stupid." Right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about a fellow, a colleague of mine. I'm a mechanic by trade. We're not dummies.
Right.
I know a lot of people
Yep.
want to think of us as goobers and grease monkeys and all that
No.
stuff. No, we're
Yeah.
highly trained professional people with schooling, right? Like this, we're none of
Mhm.
us get the job that we have without rigorous training, and
Yeah.
it's not easy stuff. So this person, hook, line, and sinker, just went like, I heard the narrative and that was it. It just goes in and that's just what I know now. Joe Rogan talks about horse paste, and so the crazy part, the crazy thing about it is it permeates society. Once
Yeah.
these lies get shown, like thrown out there, and nobody challenges them, it just becomes what it is, and anybody else is a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Like all these people who claim to be listening to scientists or to know what the right thing was, they were only listening to the news, and they were only listening to one doctor. So when the news, when I worked there, ran stories on what a fool Joe Rogan was, because on the, like, those were the stories on our news feeds that were that we'd get. Like, what a dummy he is. Look at this dumb shock jock host. Oh, he took this horse paste, which was wrong. But I remember running that
It
story
was
because there was like a
dishonest.
campaign.
It was completely
Dishonest.
dishonest to call it
Completely dishonest.
a horse medicine. It was people medicine. It's real
Right?
people recommended by
People
from
can
a
take
people
it.
doctor.
Right, like, just like you can take penicillin for animals and for humans, but the thing is, it's inaccurate information, and it doesn't talk about what that medication actually is and the history of it and what it cures. But when the news
The
tells you,
Nobel
"Oh my
Prize is
gosh,
given away for that medicine. It's discovery. Like it's incredible.
yeah, they got the Nobel Prize and whatever," the news didn't tell you that. Why didn't we tell you that? Why on earth would we not have put that in the story?
Well, and that's the real question. So like where is this information coming from? So like, you know,
Because we have been penetrated. Like, that's the thing. Like, we all your instant we
the
didn't know then.
cabinets and the news has
It
been
penetrated the
penetrated.
media, and now
Yeah.
they have penetrated these whatever's going on in this world, whatever you think it is, whoever's doing all this, we all have theories on that. Like, oh, maybe it's kind of,
Well, let me give you a
they
little
have,
pushback, just a little bit of pushback on that. So
yeah,
at the time during COVID, even good friends of mine and myself,
hmm
we'd been separated because of the whole thing and because of how the news was and how weird and this weird twilight zone feeling that everybody had because of it. A lot of friends
hmm
weren't even talking to each other about it. You know, you'd run into them, you'd be like, "Yeah, anyway," and you drop hints. Right? You'd be like, "Yeah, so I heard about a guy who got the thing, and turned out it wasn't all that bad, right?" And then you just
yeah,
wait for a response and see what they say, and then you're like, "Okay, he's part of the, you know what I mean? He's part of the crew.
yes,
He's okay. He's not
yeah.
crazy." And that was
It's amazing how everybody censored themselves in
yes,
society. Like, I can't talk about this or someone's gonna get mad at me. That's the lunacy of it.
yes,
That's us being captured. So as much as society was captured, we were captured too in the newsroom. So if this information comes down through your news wires, like all the about this drug we're talking about or whatever, that's just what you're going to believe. No one's going to look into it. But the problem is we're the broadcasters, we're the journalists. That's our bloody job. It's not like we work at London Drugs or something and we're not supposed to know anything. We are supposed to be telling you the other side of the story. And when you hear another side, you follow the other side, and they didn't.
yeah. It's crazy because like the past day, I've been arguing with people on Twitter because
Mhm.
I had one tweet that really blew up, uh, making fun of the PSAC workers for the strike and saying that last year we had the Freedom Convoy and this year we have the Freeloader Convoy, and that was the joke, and a lot of people laughing about it, but then people from the union chime in and they're all angry and they wanted to have a COVID debate. Like, why are we having a COVID debate? We're talking about you wanting too much money, but it went back
Mhm.
to that, and I noticed, and I hadn't
Mhm.
heard it in months, but people spouting what is now known as disinformation, and I had to reply to a few of them. Like this, we all have hindsight now. Why are you still saying that unvaccinated people are a danger to vaccinated people?
Why
Or
were they even saying that? That's got nothing to do with what they're striking for. Like, what? I
but
don't even
But there
understand
was
that.
the whole idea of
Yeah.
vaccine mandates was to stop the spread, and we all know that not to be true anymore. Like
Right.
that it
And
doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. Anyone will get it. Originally, I remember at the beginning of it, it was we all need to get herd immunity, right?
whatever. Yeah.
Well, and that came in naturally anyway, and we got
Yeah,
there. We're
yeah,
there now,
yeah.
and I
It
think
was
they stopped pushing it so much because people were fed up with it, and I think the convoy was
yeah.
a wake up call for a lot of people, and it snapped a lot of people out of it, but not everybody. And that's what I learned this week. It's crazy how some people are they almost like a blankie. They have to have it. They have their COVID blankie that keeps them warm and at night or whatever.
Well, a couple of things, like, you have to stick to that narrative because if you wake up, how can you psychologically face yourself? And maybe how you treated people, and maybe what you did, and maybe what this country did to its own people. If you actually have to wake up from that reality, it's too hard, and maybe people don't.
So
And
you
that's
gonna
what it
hold
is.
on to it
That's why they
forever?
have that COVID blanket. Hmm?
Hold on to it forever, though? Is
You
that
can't hold on. If you don't know by now, you look at the evidence, the people that I worked with, I feel like rattling them and shaking them for how they misinform the public, how much harm they cause, and how now they can just turn the other cheek and go on talking about other stupid things in the news when so many people have been harmed and they don't have any consequences.
no?
But and it sickens me actually. But the thing also about PSAC is how tone deaf are you people? You are already making enough money. Inflation is already high. The government services are absolute a joke as it is.
Yeah.
Getting your and how dare you maybe claim to shut down ports and things like that? And then you are so hypocritical when you judge the convoy people, right? For shutting down the border. Well, whatever. They had a lane going through. What else is a protest supposed to be? It's supposed to be disruptive. Do you think a protest is you stand on the sidewalk and let life go on? A protest is you have to disrupt because you want the government to do something. And now these PSAC people, I'm not getting any sympathy from them. Since I've been fired, I had to go get a normal job. I tell you, the wages for normal jobs are not great. So
Mhm.
be happy with what you get when your government gave all the damn money to Ukraine or whatever. They printed all this money, wasted it. They don't. You're not getting a raise. So shut up, sit down, take a seat, stop. I don't know. They're honking their horns. I guess it's okay for them to honk their horns, and what's not okay for us or
Well, they
whatever,
only
right?
do it 4 hours a day, and that bless them, bless them. They can't stand on their feet for more than that in a day. But I mean, what do
Yeah.
you expect from our government workers here in
But
Canada?
they did not stand up for people who lost their jobs, like the healthcare
No,
workers
they
and the
did not.
nurses, for not taking this, what is now known to be a toxin. Like,
I'm gonna
you know,
for YouTube's
oh yeah, yeah,
sake for
YouTube.
YouTube's sake, it's
It's safe and effective.
it's a thing that's recommended by certain entities out there, and it is now something that people can take a choice on whether they want to uh, have
Yes, you can
or
even
not.
take it if you want it. The community guidelines tell you, I don't know what they say or whatever the rules are here. I'm always getting kicked off YouTube. I have enough, so
That's why I'm
I'm
being
actually quite,
careful with you tonight
yeah,
on this one,
yeah, yeah.
because we're live as
I,
well. This isn't pre-recorded, so I can't
yes,
even.
you got to rein me in because I don't know, but call it what you want. There are other YouTubers whose channels survive talking about this stuff. So
Well, as long as you give the
you
caveat,
clear this
right?
up.
So,
This is me
and
saying it, not you. So I don't
yeah,
want your channel to be affected.
well,
Yeah,
no, and I'm
yeah.
obviously giving the caveat that it's claimed that it's safe and effective, all these other things, yada yada. But this is the case, and now, and like talking about
Mhm.
the ivermectin thing and talking about the hydroxychloroquine, the chloroquine thing. Immediately, it was how can we demonize Trump because he brought it up. Like that's
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
initially what I thought about that one. It was when the IVEC, that one, when the horse paste and all that
Mhm.
stuff came about, then it really it dawned on me, okay, we're on to something different, right? We're on to
Mhm.
a different beast here. Why is it they're
Mhm.
going after that? And it turns out, the smoke clears and we all find out what happened at the end of the day. It was they needed the emergency declaration, and they can't have the emergency measures if there was another type of treatment for it.
Yeah, you couldn't have the EUA, like the emergency, what is it? The emergency use authorization
Yeah.
of the vaccine if there's already pre-existing medication.
Or
So that's why
if not, it would
they
have to
had to be
go through the
demonized.
trials, and it would have to go through all the normal FDA
Yeah,
approval. What's the Canadian FDA anyway?
the Health Canada,
Oh, Health Canada.
like
Yeah. So the
Health
same.
Canada approval, yeah.
Yeah. So it would have to go through all those approvals. It takes years, right? It takes years for these things to go through. And it turns out that they did the test, and it was just on all of us. So it was like that was their
Because,
test run.
well, I won't say, but it's not really approved either.
Well, it's not. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not even gonna go there because I'll just get you into trouble. But the point is, what do you have the bloody news for?
Very
We're
good.
supposed to be telling you all this. And we didn't tell you anything, and we're still not telling you anything about anything, right? And now my whole world is turned upside down because now I don't believe anything. I'm like, what did I report? I think like that anthrax thing wasn't what it was either. Like all the stories that you think about that I worked on my whole life, I'm like, oh my God. It just I'm having this, there's a great awakening going on amongst all of us that perhaps we were lied to about so many things,
Well, there was
and
a
that
lot of
this
things that did
yeah.
get uncovered. I mean, Iran Contra
Mhm.
was a scandal
Mhm.
that took place, and the media was
Mhm.
behind it. The lead
Mhm.
up to the Iraq War, that was all a scandal. That it was the media was absolutely behind that. This
Behind
this
that, we
Ukraine
never
thing
said
is the media
anything.
is
Yeah, yeah,
completely behind that as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
What was it that the Desert Storm? How they sold Desert Storm? They had a little girl
Mhm.
who said she was a young lady. She said she was a nurse, and she had a story about Iraqi soldiers coming in to a room with incubators and children, uh,
Mhm.
prematurely born children, and then pulling them
Mhm.
out and dropping them on the floor to die. This this was a story that was
Oh,
told at a
that's kinda
congressional
ringing a bell. Yeah,
meeting in the early
yeah.
90s or late 80s, early
Oh, yes,
90s.
yes,
And
yes,
it turned out that young lady was actually like a princess from some Arabic nation
yes,
in the Middle East, and she was put up to
yeah,
it, and it was all a lie, and it was there just to sell the Desert Storm
yes,
invasion, and
yes,
the media knew about it, but they still went along with it.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
gross.
It's it's unethical, and it's the media that sits there and says, "Oh, we follow journalistic principles." Yeah. Do you? No, you don't. And the thing is, we might believe that princess who's testifying or whatever. We don't know what's behind it. We just see it on TV and we believe it, and we have trust in our anchors. We have trust in those names. Now people are starting to trust YouTubers and independents because they don't have anybody to trust anymore. That man in the suit and tie under the bright lights is not the man to trust anymore. Now they know that. He's led you astray, whether he was being deceived himself. And he probably was. They're not that smart, these people. They're not that smart,
It's a tremendous
these
weight,
journalists.
though. I mean, like as an independent, don't you feel it now that like it's so easy? You could change the narrative all you want. It is possible to do that as somebody. You could just you have an audience or a captive audience, and they love what you have to say, and they like your ideas, they like the sound of your voice, whatever it
Mhm,
is, right? And
mhm.
and you could totally lie to them. I mean, you'd lose your
Yeah,
credibility. It would be gone very quickly. But if you wanted to,
yeah.
you could lie to people and send them in the wrong direction as well.
You can, but the funny thing is people like all the independents do this because we want so much the truth to come out. And we would never do that. And I think there has to be retractions. Like if you've led people astray in the news, if you report something wrong in the news, we have to do a make good. We have to report it accurately, and we have to write some copy and get your anchor to read it. That we misreported such and such. It's actually such and such. They would have 3 years of reporting to catch up on all the lies, the people going, the hospitals, what was happening, the hospital numbers. People get sick all the time. We don't put it on the news, but it was a thing, right? It was panic all over the world. All the newscasters were doing it. All your governments were doing it. We
Hmm.
just didn't realize what was going on.
Well,
We
what
didn't.
comes
We
to
didn't.
mind when I talk about the independents, like the Young Turks, if you ever tuned into them,
Mhm, mhm,
they're independents,
yeah.
and holy cow, they've got a narrative, and they're letting people astray. But Anna Kasparian, the co-host of that show, apparently she's becoming based more and more based as time goes on. She's
Mm,
as she's gained more wealth and independence as a
mm,
person. A
mhm.
lot of people are calling her out and saying, "Wait, why are you disagreeing with this?" And she's slowly. I think it's along the lines of. Have you ever heard the old expression that when you're in your 20s, if you're not a liberal, you have no heart, and if
Kind of,
and in your
yeah.
40s, if you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain. It's
Yeah,
kind of like that whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
I don't consider myself a conservative. I have my own thoughts on
Mhm,
ideology and all that stuff. I definitely
mhm.
don't lean towards where the liberals are at the moment or the crazy
No,
left. But it's a weird one
they've lost
because
their mind.
yeah, it's a
Mhm,
weird one because if you ever really reach somebody, even if they are on the liberal side of things, by the end of a conversation, they'll be like, "Well, if that's what they're doing, I'm I'm an old school liberal." You know what I mean? They won't like go along with that, but they still want that that they don't want to be labeled a conservative or something because it's a bad word.
Yeah, the conser the conservatives are what the old school liberals were. We want choice and we want a good economy. A lot of us believe in family. We want our kids to just be kids. What's wrong with that? We don't want them sexualized in schools. You want to make a choice, you do what you want. Live your life, be happy. That's what we want. That's what being a liberal used to be. That's not a liberal. A liberal nowadays, if you call them the wrong thing, they're trying to. If you don't, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they want to cancel you. They want
When
to
they cancel, why do you want
shut your
to
bank
cancel
accounts
everybody
down
all the
and
time? Shut everything down.
in person people.
This
Yeah.
is it's insane. And then being conservative is not a bad word. Being anti is not a bad word. I don't care anymore. I don't use those labels. I'll tell you something. When I was walking around at Global and stuff like that, you could go around and you could say, "I don't really believe in God." You could say, I'm just not sure that that's a thing. I'm just not sure I really believe in all that." You could say that and people go, "Oh, okay." But if you went around and you said, "I'm not sure I believe in the you know what? I'm not sure I really believe in that. I'm not sure that that's a thing."
But I think that label
Like,
got thrown on people that was undeserving. I mean, like
hated. Yeah.
anti-vax was that was a statement that was reserved for like Jenny McCarthy types, like the people who believed
Yeah.
that vaccines would give people autism, which is just out to lunch, right? And that
I don't know. Is it?
oh yeah, it turned out
I don't
that
know.
yeah, no, it turned out that was all cooked up by one doctor, and that's all that ever
And
came
like
from.
Andrew Wakefield, but
Yeah.
I think though, I don't know. I still think you should have choice with that one.
Well,
If
I
you
mean, you can
don't
believe
want,
whatever you want to believe, and
yeah,
I'm not going to tell people
yeah,
what to believe or what not to
what,
believe.
yeah,
But that's where people were aligned with, right? So like,
yeah,
so it was seen as a mainstay, as like people who don't want to have their smallpox vaccine and all these like critical ones, like
yeah,
going to the Amazon, I'm gonna get my malaria vaccine. People do that
yeah,
because it makes sense,
yeah.
and the technologies, they're there, and they're safe, effective. They do the thing. They actually immunize you, which at
Mm-hmm.
an actual like scientific level is actually happening. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Like, yeah.
but people who don't want to take this current bout of
Mm-hmm.
stuff that they're putting
Mm-hmm.
out there, it doesn't put you in that camp. But it's this awful thing that people have done, is equated one group with another group. It's kind of like if you want lower taxes, you're a white supremacist. And it's just absolutely bonkers. It's bonkers
Yeah.
to throw people in these extreme categories when they don't have extreme thoughts and they don't have extreme views.
Yeah, there's nothing extreme about it at all. It's too bloody new and we don't want it. And you withholding other things. And then you fired us and didn't allow us to go into restaurants and gyms and churches. You are wrong.
Well, and just the
They are wrong.
risk reward risk
Nothing
analysis
identical.
didn't work, right? So like, I mean,
It didn't
a
work.
healthy young person doesn't really need to have it, and that's
No, so get off my nuts. Like, get off me. Like, why are we on everybody? Because everybody's just like, you're harming society. You're not participating in the greater good. But we've seen the results of that. I'm sure you've talked to many, I don't know. You know what's going on,
what's going on.
right? Like, you know, there's too much, I mean, blood clots. No.
Yeah, well,
Like we've
yeah,
seen it.
we
Yeah.
have, there's a lot of things
You
being
know,
said about
yeah.
what's happening out there, and of course we have to be careful what's being said, what things that we're trying to purvey, and of course they're always safe and effective, as what the YouTube terms of service will have me say all of this stuff
Mhm.
is. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it should be your decision, and that's where I think people really miss the ball on any of this stuff, is that you know
Mhm.
and especially
Mhm.
like liberal minded people on the liberal camp that have always said my body, my choice,
Mhm.
for particular things. They weren't so keen on this one in this sort
They
of
don't
scenario.
even see their own hypocrisy. They don't even see it, you know? And it's just it's I don't know. I really blame all this on the news. I really do, because it's your grandma, your mom, your sister, whatever, watching the news, and they just follow the news. And if they're in bed with the government and then the government is texting you, it's time to get your booster, you just think, "Oh, I got to do this." And if you're not, how many people do we know that work 9 to 5, come home, eat dinner, whatever, watch Netflix, that's it. All these things, and think about you and what you've covered: the maid, the Bill C-11, the PSAC stuff, the POEC emergency commission, like the emergency hearings. You've covered stuff going on in BC, the CSAP stuff, and so you're doing your best to tell us what's going on. That is the job of the bloody news,
I gotta
and the
walk on
news
eggshells
isn't telling
though.
you anything.
I mean, here's the
Huh?
thing: I gotta walk on eggshells because I'm on YouTube,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
and YouTube's got their terms of service. They say you can't say this, you can't say that. They're very vague about what you are allowed to say. It's not very straight to the point. Like if you want to cover these
Mhm,
subjects, you don't know if and it may depend on who's moderating and who's looking at it that day. If
mhm,
it ends up on their plate, whether you're doing the thing or not. But while you're trying to give people the truth of what's happening out there. And I always try to let people decide, right? And that's my main goal, my main uh, determination. I'll give people my opinion, but at the same
mhm,
time, here are the facts. Here's my opinion. Decide for yourself. It really is up to you. And at the end of the day,
mhm.
these are your decisions
Yeah.
to be making, and how.
You're very good at just presenting it, like, just, "Okay, okay, that's what I gotta tell you," right? Yeah, and then that's why you're surviving on YouTube. You've danced the dance
I dance the
very
dance.
carefully.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, like you're on Rumble, and we're gonna make sure that your links are available for everybody
Oh,
to
thank
get
you.
over there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Rumble's come about because of all of the restriction here that's happening. I happen to do much better on YouTube. Rumble, I don't
Mm,
know why they don't recommend my stuff. I post it.
mm,
I post it every day on Rumble, but YouTube has taken off,
mm.
and this is where a majority of the audience is. So I'm
It's
obviously gonna run with it.
amazing, yeah. It's amazing because you don't shy away from stuff, you do talk about stuff, like,
I've been
the
spanked.
oh, okay, yeah,
I did get
yeah,
spanked.
yeah.
I covered I covered when Pfizer had their
Mhm,
documents had to come out, and I covered that,
mhm,
and I got in trouble. I got in
mhm,
trouble. So we got
mhm. I
we
think I got kicked off too when, yeah,
yeah,
mhm.
I got spanked when it came to that. But
But you have to stop and think for just 1 second. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna be very careful. Like, what kind of world are we living in where that happens? What are you doing wrong? Are you doing anything wrong? Are you No.
no, I'm not doing
You're
anything. I
just
don't
trying to
believe I'm doing
report
anything
what
wrong.
some document that has come from that company. So you're getting slapped for that? So that's not right.
No, it
And
isn't.
that's why people are that's not right. You are not doing one thing wrong. And now if we stop and look, there's probably plenty of YouTube videos that show how to do things that people shouldn't be looking at. I'm sure I can go on YouTube and find out how to make something I shouldn't be, come on. Those videos don't get taken off of YouTube. They got all the videos on YouTube. You can watch people cage fighting like in the street and stuff like that. Like you can watch all kinds of bad things. They're not getting slapped. Why not? Why are you?
Because
Because we've been infiltrated.
it's not. It's controversial. And it's not even just
Yeah.
about controversial, and it's not about ad friendly or not, because I you get dinged with those periodically. You cover a story that at the moment the censors don't want you to cover, so they'll give you that, the yellow dollar sign, the demonetized. And
Oh.
immediately when that happens, you get no reach on that video. The video just doesn't get
Mm,
recommended out to people.
mm,
So the main purpose of trying to toe the line, walk on the eggshells, and try to get your story out there is so that you can reach your audience, because YouTube will actively suppress it. Well, it's not so much a suppression; it's more of they're not going to recommend it because they're not making any money
it's
on
a
it.
little minor shackle. They're shackling you a little bit,
It
a
is a
little bit.
shackle,
Like that. Yeah, it's like a shackle.
so you got to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
clever. You got to dance around it. You
You're
got
well, you've been clever. You're thriving on there. So
thank you.
and providing a service. Because sometimes when I need to find something, I'll like type it in, and You can find it on Rumble, but on YouTube, then I notice you come up, and you also do a lot of Canadian content. So I hope that the Bill C-11 doesn't, you know, who knows what's gonna happen. I think we'll be okay. I don't know. I
Oh,
don't know.
so
But
there's a
anyway.
few theories about what might happen. So
Mhm.
obviously, the Canadian government wants to actively be involved in the curating the algorithm and your recommendations feed. So if they say any Canadian news that's not news, they might be able to say that. But I think it's only 40%. So YouTube will largely recommend the things that you want, but 40% of it will be soiled with
Mm.
government recommendations, essentially, or government guideline recommendations. Which actually, and I heard about this from Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers channel.
Mm.
He knows he's from Toronto, and he's a real tech savvy guy, and he says this could actually hurt people who qualify for the Canadian content label because of the way the algorithm works. What could happen is the government says you have to give 40% attention to these people because that's the law
Mhm.
for radio and television, 40% Canadian content. So anyone who qualifies as Canadian content, they may put out in the chat right now, people, Muda, everyone loves Mudahar, but yeah, they may force out the recommendations, but they're recommending channels that you might not want to watch, but it just happens to be Canadian content. So YouTube's like, okay, whatever, we'll comply. Here you go, and you don't end up watching what's recommended to you. So YouTube gets a notification for that channel as this channel sucks. Nobody watches it even though we recommend it.
What? Like, what do you mean? Like, what would they recommend? Like, watch Corner Gas or something? Like, what would they like?
Well, no. So
What would
if a
they? Mm,
YouTuber were to fall under the
yeah.
Canadian content category, they would be
Mhm.
YouTube's hands are tied. They have to recommend it out to more people from
Oh,
Canada.
I see.
So
Okay.
they would end
Okay.
up
Yeah.
having to recommend it out to people who are not interested based on their algorithmic study of their profile of each
Okay.
user. So they'll be recommending
Okay.
it to people that they wouldn't normally recommend this content out to, and because of that, there would be less people actually clicking on it. So because there's less people clicking on it, even though they've been shown it, it shows in their algorithm. It
Oh,
shows
yes.
in their statistics that we showed it to a bunch of people and nobody wants to watch it. This channel sucks. We're not
Oh,
recommending
yeah.
these videos out anymore, and it could derank your
Yeah.
channel. And this is one thing that Mudahar was bringing up.
Ooh,
So there's
that's a very,
yeah,
yeah, clever
unintended
way to do it.
unintended consequences, right?
Mm.
And this is
Yeah, yeah, which are deliberate on their part because they know they're being sneaky. That's sneaky what you just described to me.
it's
A
well,
little sneaky.
it's sneaky, but well, I mean, it would be unintended at this point. I know there's a channel called the Spiffing Brit, and
Mhm.
he's a channel. He likes to screw with the YouTube's algorithm and try to find
Oh.
try to find little exploits and figure it out. And one exploit that he found out was if he was to recommend do advertisement for a channel in on their live streams, and he would
Mhm.
run advertisements for the channel. If he ran it
Mhm.
in a very marginal group, like a group that fit the profile of the channel, then the channel would do
Mhm.
really well. But if he inversely recommended that channel out to people who would never like it, like say
Mhm.
recommend it to like Beauty Network and stuff like that, but it's news,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, people would not watch it, and it would actually inversely hurt the channel. And so
Mhm. Mhm.
the same thing worked with advertising, and I'm sure they're YouTube watches that guy like a hawk so that they can find out all the
Oh,
exploits,
wow.
and they fix them right away. But these are issues that are genuine concern, that are more um, they're more apolitical issues. They're
Mhm.
more just unintended consequences of this kind of thing. And I mean,
Mm.
people who study economics and stuff, they know a lot about unintended consequences. I'm a huge avid like reader of economic stuff. I don't know why I'm a dork,
Oh,
but um, yeah, the
that's
idea
good.
of unintended consequences. So you disturb the market by putting in regulation, but you don't know what'll end up happening. It's kind of like throwing a goldfish in a pond. You think it's just gonna
Yeah.
end with the goldfish, like living its life out and being happy? No, you
No.
end up with like an invasive species now, and then it causes all kinds of problems down the road, and stuff that you wouldn't
But
even ever have
keep
thought of.
yeah. I mean, keep in mind, this is coming from this government. So there will be, however this all unfolds when that goldfish lands in the pond will probably be to their benefit. They don't put these things in for you or for Canadian content. I feel they put these things in for their benefit, and it goes along with controlling information. They
Hmm.
have controlled the mainstream media. However, it's come down, this whole very famous 600 million that they've given to all the mainstream networks and newspapers, and that goes down even to radio too. So if you're driving your kids to school and you're listening to two DJs, those DJs also have um they also have a narrative. Even though you think they're just talking casually, they have a narrative.
Yeah.
And so they know what they're supposed to say because their program director is going to be guiding them. They know that everybody knows the line they have to toe. And with the bot media, if you're just an average person, that is your world, and that's what gets in your brain. Like, one of my best friend doesn't even understand why Trudeau isn't the world's greatest guy. Like, she doesn't know. Like, she would never watch a Rumble video. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't understand anything. She just knows what she sees on global news.
Hmm.
It's really sad.
Well, getting
And that's your world.
getting back to
Mhm.
that. So, how did your career
Yeah.
with Global end? What went on
Oh,
there?
well, I mean, I brought up all this, like, day in, day out, I just kept saying stuff, like, because part of my job was, like, I remember when I directed the 6 o'clock news on the weekend, and I remember we did, some big, long stories, several of them actually, telling pregnant women to take it, and I was like, "When on earth?" Anyway, I'll probably get into trouble if I talk about that, but I just didn't think that was a good idea, and when I brought that up, it just caused a lot of problems because I kept bringing it up to producers, the people that make the editorial content, and I just kept getting told to shut up or dismissed. And it just became such a terrible atmosphere. And I found I was sickened by these people, and I was really sickened by how we treated the healthcare workers, because this was the time we are all banging the pots and pans, and then the thing happened, and then now we're demonized the same people. And I'm
Mm.
like, you're so hypocritical. And then the nicest people who were directors and editors and my friends, like, the nicest people turned. And I'm like, how did the nicest people turn, right? And everybody turned. And then my cousin, lots of people in my family became really injured. And and I'm not the type to keep my mouth shut, as you can tell. So I'm the type that I will say, hey, what about this, what about this, how come we're not reporting this, or why didn't you say this, or and every time I did, I'm busting their narrative, and so I became a problem there. Then I went to a couple of rallies, and then I started talking, like, I just went on stage and I said, "I don't know what's going on, and I don't know why this is happening." Because at the time, I didn't know why the media was the way I really didn't know. And, then I got suspended. "Oh, Anita, you spoke at a rally." Yeah, well, I didn't say anything bad. What did I say that was bad? I didn't say anything bad. And then
So, is there
one
something in
time
your contract though? Like, did you sign anything that said you're not allowed to go out and have your own political opinions? And I mean, because you were in the back end, you weren't the talent on the stage. You were
No, yeah.
you were programming.
Yeah, it was just I was part of the crew, and then they said that I had violated the journalistic principles, and I said, "How so?" And so there's a whole video on my Rumble channel of them grilling me, and I took them to task for that because I did not violate these principles. What Show me where I did. God, I was so mad at them when they were coming at me for that. And then so I got a 3-day suspension and then went back to work. And then one day my mask was dangling a little bit because I'm like, I got 3 years in, I still got to wear this ridiculous thing. Right? I really hated it, and because because there are so many rumblings about. Well, at the time, people didn't really care for me too much because I people knew how I felt about this, so I
Right. So
wasn't
you,
one of
you
them.
already got blackballed. So like you were,
Black, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you were
People
already
told me,
the.
asked me. The director of the 6 o'clock news is a really nice guy. He asked me to not sit at the same desk. Like we shared the same desk. I said, I've been sitting at this desk for 10 years. You want me to move? Like, come on. Like, and he was just like, I don't want your stuff here. Well, who the hell are you to tell me? I said, I'll sit where I want to sit or whatever. And it got really ugly. And then
Wow.
my mask was dangling. And then somebody snitched on me and they just threw me out of the building that day that my mask was dangling because they said, you're not following mask protocol. Well, I was drinking water and I was in a room with one other guy and there was a plexiglass between us. So I can't like, what do you want, you people? You
Wow.
show me some science as to why this works, and they never could. And I was escorted out of the building like a criminal, and of course, I went yelling, whatever. But and then I had tweeted something and I think I got fired for the tweet. So basically I just got fired because I had tweeted I said something like, why are the churches and gyms closed and the strip clubs and the casinos are open? Somebody please ask.
Yeah, but it's such a valid question. It's such a valid question of what was going on
I
at the
said,
time.
I said, could somebody please ask the provincial health officer why? And I would direct those dumb press conferences with that woman droning on our bloody provincial health officer. It's just half of what she said was like nonsensical garbage, and she left so much stuff out. And I don't know. I don't know. They just got sick of me and fired me, and I still don't even think it was a legitimate firing. And the other thing is, everybody I worked with is just fine. Yeah, they're just fine to let that happen. Nobody's going to say anything. These people I worked with for 24 years, they're happy to take away my extended medical, and all like everything I had worked for. You're just happy to just toss me out on my ass. I never thought of that, but my friend told me that. He's like, they're not, no one's reaching out to you to
Yeah.
say anything to you. None of these people that they try to be so sanctimonious on television, reading you the newscast, none of them said anything. They're just very happy to keep their paycheck and they'll lie to you as long as you let them, as far
That's
as I can see.
that's the scariest part about all this to me is that people can I don't believe most people believe this stuff. Like I think
Yeah.
most people are just like everyone else believes it. I'm just gonna get on with it. I'll go along to get along. But
Yeah.
I have a feeling that most people are just like, yeah, this is pretty BS, like all of it. And we're
Yeah.
just gonna
Uh,
get through it and whatever. But the fact that they're willing to let other people like go down and
yeah.
be cool with that, it makes me sad for humanity's sake. You know what I mean? and
Yeah.
and I've always
Yeah.
wondered too, like I always wondered, like, because obviously I wasn't alive at the time, I was born in the 80s, but I always wondered how people in the Cultural Revolution in China could just let this stuff happen. The people in during World War II in Germany just let the stuff happen. People in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia just let this stuff happen. And these are the things that, like, and yeah, I know it's difficult to compare the two because you're talking about people losing their livelihoods here. You're not talking about people losing their lives, right? Like the same at the
Mhm.
same extent and frequency. But I think that the scenario, the psyche behind it had the same feel.
Mhm. Yes, it does. It does. It's just on a different level. It's just not as big a consequence. But your livelihood, your job, your comfort, your pension, your paycheck, what you need to make your car payments and pay your rent, people are too scared to put that on the line. So that's our thing. I guess we're not in China, like Maoist China or whatever, but it's with our lives being threatened or being starved or something like that. But we are that we created the fear, so it's like, oh, this big mouth Anita, she was saying, oh, this isn't a good idea. Why are we not reporting that? Oh, look what happened to her. She's the lamb on the chopping block or whatever, right? Well, I don't want that to happen to me. I like my global paycheck or whatever, right? So it's that fear. So you've instilled that fear in people. Go along to get along, keep your mouth shut. Sometimes I'd bring up things like, isn't this really weird, this vaccine passport and all that? What does this remind you of? Like it reminded me of papers in South Africa, like for apartheid and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people at work would be like, oh no, come on. It's not that. Like they couldn't make the connection. It is like that.
Well, how bad does it have
It
to
is
get
like
though?
that.
Like, how bad does it have to get for these people to stop just going along to get along, right? Like, at what point are they like, holy cow, this is really not good? You know, people are losing their livelihoods. People are, you know, being forced into things that they
Oh, they don't
rather
care.
not do.
Yeah. They don't care. You did the bad thing. You didn't do the right thing, so too bad. It's like that. All the talk show hosts would be saying that. Jimmy Kimmel said stuff like that. You didn't take this thing and you're having a heart problem. Get in line, Wheezy. I remember him saying something like that. So it's like you were the bad one. You not taking this because you don't want to help anybody. How dare you? That is what we did to people.
I
That
think
is what the
I
news
think
did to
that's the
people.
real pandemic. The real pandemic is otherwise intelligent people losing their mind. Like, and no kidding. I mean, I'm talking about like Jimmy Kimmel. He was a comedian. He was funny. He was racy
Yeah.
even, like in his
Yeah.
comedy.
It was funny.
And what
Yeah.
happened? Like he got some notoriety. He got a
ABC
little
money.
ABC money,
Right? Yeah, like ABC money happened, yeah. Like, he works for the network, and
right?
then he's gotta listen to all those top-down people who sit there in board meetings with him, and they gotta all the shareholders, and look what happened to Tucker
Yeah, I
Carlson,
was
for
gonna
God's
ask you
sake.
about that. I wanted to ask your opinion about this whole story with Tucker
Oh, okay.
Carlson because you like.
Can
Oh,
can I grab something?
of
It'll take
course.
me 30
No
seconds, or my
problem. No
computer might
problem. I'm gonna
die.
adjust the
Okay,
chat
it won't
here.
even take me 30
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah, no problem. All right. Oh, this is great. This is great. I'm really I'm excited to do this live because essentially this
This is
never happens live.
in a
I usually do these
pre-tape.
pre-recorded when I
Yeah.
have somebody come on and chat. But this is always fun, and I gotta be careful, and I always try to watch my tongue,
I'm trying not to
but
get you in any
making
more trouble.
making sure that she watches her tongue. Super guest, Clyde. Oh, awesome! Thank you so much, political foolishness.
Okay, I
I
have
really appreciate it. Great
this thing
interview.
that
Well, it's less of an interview and more of just a chat. I've actually wanted to talk with Anita for a good amount of time. I've known
Aw.
about you for a good chunk of time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk to you. I've been like,
It's
yeah.
difficult
I'm
though,
so
because
glad.
like I do videos every single day, so it's really hard to adjust my schedule around and get in touch with
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
and
Oh, it's so hard.
it really
It's so
is.
hard.
Really is.
It
But then
really
I
is.
finally get in
Yeah.
touch with people, and then I'm like, okay, well, I want to bring you on. I want to have a chat with you on the show.
But it's so good to seize the moment. We just did this so spur of the moment, but it's so good. Otherwise,
Literally,
we
for
might not
everybody
have the
watching
chance.
this was like an hour before that we set this up. Literally. So sometimes,
Yeah.
and it was funny because, well, you contacted me. Hey, I'd love to pick your brain. I said, what do you?
Yes.
I'm going camping this weekend. What are you doing tonight?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it just kind of spawned from there. But yeah, let's get
Yeah.
into this. What do you think of what happened with Tucker Carlson? I was talking about him earlier about the things that he had to say. But he was booted from the network abruptly. Number one show in news, absolutely number one, number one cable TV.
Yeah.
What was
3
it?
million views, I think, per newscast.
Yeah,
That's
3 million. Oh, it's a ridiculous amount of views, and
Mm-hmm.
they give him the boot completely overnight. He says I'll be back on Monday, and Monday rolls
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
and they made the announcement that he won't be doing a show tonight, and then
Yeah.
Fox loses about $1 billion in market value that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Tucker Carlson would get a lot of criticism. Like, people are very unforgiving. And the liberal people that I used to work with, they make fun of him. They would just make fun of him like he was just like some sort of loser. But if you actually sit there and watch, people in my life make fun of him too.
Most
You
successful
know,
loser, though. Like, I mean.
and it's a successful loser. But if you objectively watch his reporting and his newscast, he's the only person on network television actually telling an accurate story with the bravery and honesty. The way he covered the convoy and this one guy, he did so many stories of the freedom convoy. He had like, the rebel news people on. He had people on. He was talking to business owners and stuff like that. There was one guy pulled out of his truck during the convoy and he was beaten up. That guy ended up on Tucker Carlson. Like, he's put a lot of us Canadians on because he recognizes how crazy Canada is, but he's also talking about all the other things too that are going on in life, but he does it in a very polished, very good newscast. Like, it is an excellent program. And maybe years and years ago, he wore a bow tie. Okay. And people made fun of him then, but that was years and years ago, where maybe he wasn't as polished as he is now. But he's a very genuine, authentic broadcaster and a very good storyteller. And then I saw him on a podcast with some young guy saying, I really related to this because he's like, I spent 20 years, 22 years of my life, or however long he worked in the 30 years, maybe he worked in the business, and he never really knew that we were probably not being honest about a lot of things. Like, and I could really relate to that. I spent 24 years of my life in that business, and never did I think that we were not trying to tell the truth. I mean, some things seemed funny, but then I never thought that we had anything but genuine intent to tell the truth until I saw us not want to tell the truth. So when he said that he dedicated his life to that business and could see that they're not out to tell you the truth, especially not now, I really related to that. And for a company, it just shows you that money talks. It's shareholders talk. Even at Fox News, they are more concerned with whoever funds them, whatever the shareholders think, or whatever's going on. And they're going to let go their main anchor. Like, I mean, he is Fox News. Everybody else, the Morning Joe, who even knows who anybody else is. I can't even name you anybody. Greg Gutfield or something.
No, Greg Gutfield's actually got really good reviews and really good ratings.
Okay.
He actually does better. Well, he does better than Jimmy Kimmel. He does better than no, seriously, he does for a cable news network and the late night show gets the News Tonight or Tonight show with Jimmy Fallon doesn't do as good as Gutfeld. All these guys are doing worse than Gutfeld. People are only tuning into that. So like, it's funny. The only and I put this out there asking people, are you going to watch Fox ever again because of this? And majority of people said no, or said didn't watch it in the first place. But a lot of people who did and said that they would still watch, they all listed Gutfeld as the reason why they'd still stick around, because it's the only thing keeping them there. Apparently his show's really good.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of campy and chatty and fun, and he's got some good guests on and stuff like that. It's very campy. It's not like a news show to me, but like Tucker was actually a news program.
Yeah.
With his opinion, because that's a big part of news nowadays. And then he had that chat show that he did on the weekend where he'd like talk to people in longer format, which I thought was great. Nobody is going. Okay, Greg Gutfield may keep some audience, but he's not going to keep the audience that Tucker kept. No. Right? We are going to follow Tucker, and the offers for him are going to, he's fine. He's already rich. Like he's fine. But because these salaries these guys make, right? Yeah.
Well, they're saying that he can make $100 million anywhere he goes.
Wow. Amazing. Why can't he come here? Come and help us. Right?
Come help Canada. Like, well, I'm sure he's got his loyalties are to the United States of America, but
yeah. But wherever he lands, Rumble or RT, because we hear all these things, or wherever he goes,
I don't think he's going to RT. That would be. They offered him. They offered it to him. I did hear that.
I heard rumblings about that, but that would be weird if he went
really
there.
Weird.
But
yeah.
Wherever he launches or whoever he goes with, I mean, he's friends with Elon Musk. I mean, come on.
And Alex Jones too.
Oh, and Alex Jones.
Yeah, it turns out that they kept it kind of hush hush for a long time, but it was the Dominion. I think Dominion was suing them. In that his text messages all got released in that court document, or in the court documents, and there was very friendly chats, like best buds kind of friendly chats with Alex Jones. And then also awesome. Also what came out was like a bunch of stuff making fun of the upper management, to which some people speculated that that's why he got fired. I don't think that would be any reason to fire their number one talent that brings in most of their ratings. Like,
Yeah, it was how he spoke and he just decided to be honest, and somebody I guess just didn't like it. I mean, there must be more to the story, maybe we don't know, but it just shows you how, oh, man, he got canceled. You can be the best thing ever for a network, and if the network doesn't like you for whatever reason, or some shareholder or somebody doesn't like you, you're gone. Well, just try surviving. I mean, yeah, maybe they will, but people are fickle now. They're just going to turn. They've soured people by doing that. Why should we patronize that network anymore if they can do that to people who we think whose reporting we enjoy? You're already making the money. What? I don't know, or maybe that's in question. It's all money.
well, it just shows how
Like,
valuable telling the truth is. Like at this point,
yeah.
the amount of money that they'll lose intentionally, $1 billion overnight, to silence somebody telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like, look what they did to Donald Trump. I mean, love him or hate him, he said what
Yeah.
people were thinking, right? Like
He did.
a lot of what he was saying, what resonated with grievances that people had that the politicians
Mhm.
would touch on but never quite get to. You know what I mean? They'd always try to get you with some divisive issue, and then that's going to be the election issue, and that's going to be, your
Mhm.
one issue voters and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
they never got to anything that people really cared about. And even
Mm.
today, like what are our candidates in Canada talking about? The only one, Pierre Poilievre's got
Mhm.
lots of people rallying behind him when he started talking about real
Mhm.
issues. Like, people are
Mhm.
concerned about the economy now because it's really
Mhm.
gonna be bad. It's looking horrible.
Yeah. But who
Maxime
do we
Bernier's got a
have?
huge following
Yeah.
because he just
Yes.
straight up tells it like it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how well he'll do in a general election.
But some people got
Hopefully,
sour on Pierre also, Pierre Polyev, they didn't they because they feel he's not speaking up enough, right?
right? Yeah, your light
Okay.
just went out. It just
Yeah.
did it burn out? Did it just burn out?
Oh, it might have just burned out.
Oh wow.
This is gosh, now I'm in dark. Oh well, whatever. Maybe that's better if I'm in total darkness or
Yeah, you
whatever.
look more
But yeah,
tan
no,
now.
that's I don't know. That's it's all well, and then the whole Tucker gone, and then Don Lemon gone, and nobody really cares that he's gone. Who
He didn't
cares?
get the limelight, that one.
Yeah, he
He got
didn't get that.
overshadowed.
And then speaking of networks, like CBC got in a hissy fit because of the Elon Twitter thing, saying that they're government funded. Like the
Which I looked
network.
today and it's gone. That label's gone off of it. Yeah, I'm sad.
Why? I wonder.
It
It's true.
it blew over and nobody was looking
Oh,
anymore, so they're like, okay, we'll make a joke about it, hold hard, and then do it, and then they'll come back.
like
And
well, it created what it needed to create. Like it cemented something in the mentality of Twitter users, right? So,
yeah.
like we know the deal. But maybe mainstream media will redeem itself one day. Like maybe one day things will change. I don't know. There'll be an
We're
ebb
hoping
and a
for it.
flow.
No, I see the Tucker Carlson situation as like a really good indicator that we're gonna do better online. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, like inadvertently, I think that the mainstream media gave themselves a serious death blow in removing Tucker Carlson. Because where do you think he's going to end up? You think he's going to be on any of these major mainstream media outlets again? No,
No.
he's going to make his own outlet. I mean,
Yeah.
like Glenn Beck a bunch of years ago, like another guy, love him or hate him. I found him really annoying for a long time, but he made the Blaze, right? He ended up making the
Mm.
Blaze, and the Blaze is, uh,
Is that big
blazing
if you make the
trail.
Blaze? It is, isn't it? If you get on Blaze TV, that would be good. That'd be sweet, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm sure.
To,
I'm sure Glenn Beck
yeah.
is throwing offers out. He did
Yeah.
allude to it, talking about it.
Mm.
But what he did was
Mhm.
he was talking about the fact that that it had happened to him. He got thrown off of
Mhm.
Fox News, and then what he did he invested what he had, and he built the Blaze, and now the Blaze is a formidable thing. Like,
Mhm.
love it or hate it. I mean, there are
Mhm.
certain things that you could say about the Blaze. I noticed certain people that have signed with them they all of a sudden seems like they get neutered. You know what I mean? They're a little less controversial all the time, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, maybe I don't know, that might be me looking into it, or maybe they've just chilled out on their own, or I don't know.
Mhm.
Who knows? I mean, only they could tell that tale. But you know, these are new
I don't
networks that are coming
yeah,
about. The Daily Wired
yeah.
is another one. Ben Shapiro
Yes.
put that one together. Um, Louder with
Very
Crowder,
successful, very smart.
yeah, very successful, very smart.
Very
Louder,
smart choices and talent.
yeah, Louder with Crowder was apparently
Oh,
trying to
he's
start his
fun.
own thing.
Yeah,
He's got
on
himself
Rumble.
into some more
Mhm,
controversy this past week, which
mhm,
you know, we'll see how he works through that stuff. Because
mm,
infighting, I'm not really a big fan of, and I don't
mhm,
really like to cover like just personal
mhm,
drama stuff. So like,
mhm.
I'm just gonna leave that one alone. But
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, something good comes out of it, and everybody, you know, sees that
Maybe he'll
situation
go
as
to
better.
HBO, I don't know.
Who
But
knows?
HBO is very corporate too, right? But, at least they have Bill Maher who's saying some good things. He has some good guests. He has some brain. He's a liberal, but he makes some sense sometimes,
Well,
I like
yeah,
Bill Maher.
Bill
Mhm.
Maher's been coming around. You know, as
Mhm.
the years
Yes,
have
he's
been
coming
going,
around,
he's
coming
been
around.
coming
But
around.
you'd have to be brain dead to not come around at this point. You have to be living in a vacuum or something if you don't come around at this point,
Well, some
it's
people are in that vacuum, but like, you know,
yeah,
Bill Maher is kind of in that vacuum. He is in, you know,
yeah.
liberal Hollywood, but yet he's still coming around,
Mhm.
even being there. So you know, it gives people hope to see that kind of thing. We don't know where it'll go next. I just
And yeah, we don't know where it'll go, and it's very hard, like, one thing I was gonna say is, like, being the networks have so much power and so much money and so many resources. You've got a newsroom, you've got like access to feeds. If there's like, how do you think you get the OJ chase? Or like, there are many times at work where there was like a highway chase in the States and we'd get the feed, because their helicopter at the local affiliate station would be shooting it, and then we could run that type of thing. You could run it on your newscast, you could do breaking news, you had editors, camera people, the teleprompter, everybody was a machine working together fueled by money to bring you the news. But people who go out on their own, we have nothing. You have to just do it from nothing. You just use the internet, you get some software, you get a couple of cameras, and you do the best you can on your own. And people are doing such fantastic things. But I do get very resentful that my tax dollars go to CBC to lie to me. But
yeah.
I'd rather have my tax dollars go to independence. I really want to see that change. And I would like to see more resources come to the independents because you're doing it all by yourself. And I think
The
that
resources are
to
coming to
yeah.
us anyway. People are, you know, people leave super chats, and that's
Mm,
how I fund the show. There's ad revenue
mm,
that I earn from videos that I put out
mm,
on YouTube, and
mm.
this is fueling all of that. And
Oh,
immediately
good.
as soon as I say that, I get a new member. Suzanne Eckstein, with a member for 2 months. Thank you so much. Says Clyde, YouTube says is saying the video is not available in your country. I'm from Saskatchewan. No, that's just the thumbnail. I put that there on
Mm,
purpose.
mm.
That's the deal. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of clickbait. You do have to, you do a little bit of that in every video just to entice an audience to come over and view it. But
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Well,
it's
the people have been generous for sure,
that's the thing. So,
Yeah.
but this is what I'm saying. It's really, it really is it's proving the point that I was making earlier, how expensive it is to try to squash the truth. Like what, like how much the truth is really worth. If you're willing to get out there and put a little bit of integrity behind what it is that you say. Like I've had to make retractions on this channel, and it's not always fun, but I get stuff wrong, and then I'll immediately I put out a video just telling people I got it wrong. I want you to
Yeah.
know that I got it wrong, and I'm coming out there and telling you that I got it wrong. It's an integrity thing, and it makes way more sense
Well, we
to,
used to do that in the news, and good for you that you did that, but that was really part of it. If we ever reported a fact that was then known to be wrong, you have to retract it and make the correction. So, that's what the news used to do. They don't
yeah,
right now.
they
I can
don't.
tell you that.
They don't at all.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Gerald Nadeau in the chat with a $11 super chat saying this super chat has no purpose but to support you. So this is exactly how it goes. You know, the support comes directly from the audience. It's how it should work. It's how markets should work in general. And of course, more coming in as soon as I say this. They all
Oh, that's
start
awesome.
rolling in. Lance with a 550 super chat. Don might not have had the limelight with everything, but when he got the lemon light, he did get the lemon light. Hopefully he's not bitter. I was thinking Don like Donald Trump, but he's talking about
Don
Don
Lemon,
Lemon,
yeah.
Mr. Don
Don Lemon.
Lemon.
They,
Not
they should all be fine. I mean, they made tons of, like, millions. They made the money. They're going to be okay. They should have enough to go start up whatever they're going to start. It's the
yes.
real working class people that have started independent projects that need the help, right? The people who already make millions of dollars, they're going to be fine because they'll be sued. Like, people like will come to them, people with money, the corporations, right?
Well, and then
But
this is how things get sullied and soiled, right? So I always worry about that.
yeah,
I worry about
yeah,
signing a deal and then being beholden to a
yes,
network that I signed a deal with, stuff like that.
yeah,
That's kind of what I was alluding to about like people signing with a thing and then all of a sudden becoming really tame and less controversial. But this is
yeah.
a thing. Space Dave with a super chat asking, can you post Anita's links? She's on point. I'll make sure to post the links. Do you have? You gotta make sure you
I
got a
have,
link to
like,
your Rumble.
like, my Rumble channel is such okay, you can go to anitakrishna.com, but you actually, if you Google me, I don't actually come up. You have to actually go and search. Well, I do kind of come up. You have to go search. You have to go type in anitakrishna.com, and then my website should come up. I just kind of had it made. I'm very technically, like, not good at anything. I'm not good at social media. But
So it's in
and
the chat right now, anitakrishna.com. And then I'll
okay,
make sure I've got um, your Twitter bio in there.
okay.
And the
Oh, okay.
Krishna.com will take you to the Rumble. Now here's a little secret when you're on YouTube. Don't leave Rumble links in your description or don't give out Rumble links. YouTube
Oh,
hates it. Of course, it
oh,
makes a lot of sense.
so
It's
many.
their direct
Oh,
competitor. You don't want to, so you give them another workaround to in order to get over to
oh,
your
okay, because
Rumble.
so many people are doing that.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not helping them.
people do that, yeah. Well, yeah, YouTube would be like, "They don't like that, they don't like
A
it."
little
I don't
trick.
even understand
No, a little
super
trick.
chats or anything like that.
Yeah, just if you post a video on YouTube and you want to put a Rumble link, put it in a comment. Like comment it and then pin the comment to
Oh,
the top.
oh, okay, okay.
People
Oh,
actually,
smart.
yeah, people actually see that first because the comments come up before you can roll down the description.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
see, you know things. Yeah.
I know things. I know
You know the
I've
things.
been around for
Yeah,
a while on YouTube. It's yeah, I've been doing
yeah.
this for a number of years. It's only this year, well, because I used to do automotive content. I did a bunch of other kind of content,
Oh.
and then I got into politics when the convoy kicked off,
Mhm,
and you were talking about
mhm,
people wanting to find what's happening on the street kind of thing, and that's what I did. I would
mm,
wake up super early and I'd pay attention all day long of what was happening at the convoy because I
mhm,
knew that our media was lying to us,
mhm, mhm.
and I would just publish everything that I could about what was actually
Oh,
happening
good for
down
you.
on the street. In the end, I end up meeting all these fantastic people, and here I am talking with you, and this is
Oh.
the road that it's led me down, and
Yes,
it's amazing.
that it's led me to same way to fantastic people.
Yeah,
I've
I
just
just
met
feel
fantastic
so
people.
blessed to be in
I
this
do.
situation. It's just it's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I started to do the same thing and interview truckers. I interviewed people driving in trucks on the way to the convoy. Nobody else was doing that. And that whole remember when the Terry Fox thing happened and the news went ape shit over that, saying that, they desecrated it and blah, blah, blah. And
Hmm.
oh, just like how they it was so manipulative. It was just awful. It was an exciting time because of the convoy. It was an awful time because of what was happening. To me, that whole thing felt like war.
Yes.
It felt totally like war, right? And that you're in a war. And you know, I broke away from the the Nazis or whatever, right? Like my friend calls it Goebbels news instead of like whatever
Oh yeah,
global
like
news.
Joseph
Yeah,
Goebbels.
like Joseph Goebbels or whatever. It's quite funny, but yeah. I mean, and a lot of times, like when you end a newscast, if you see something beautiful, like if it was a Remembrance Day ceremony, you'll do this beautiful wide shot to end the newscast and put the copyright on the bottom. And sometimes we always think, oh, what's going to be a good copyright shot? Like we kind of we'd always do that kind of thing. And I remember saying, well, why don't we use the Freedom Convoy? You've got thousands, like a sea of thousands and thousands of people in Ottawa outside Parliament with Canadian flags. Like, why don't we use that? We did, of course. And I said that knowing quite well they wouldn't do that. And then one of the directors said to me, "Oh, there's a Confederate flag in there, Anita."
No, there
Or,
wasn't. No, there wasn't.
uh, well, okay, even if there was, I didn't see it. And even if there was, that's one flag. You're gonna focus on one flag?
Yeah, they
Are you
will.
kidding me?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
will. Yeah, they will.
Oh, they're awful, 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 awful people. I just hope that even the good people went awful. The person that said that to me was really, really nice, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just
it's amazing too, because even to this day, like if you look for pictures of the convoy, if you're on left leaning Twitter, you'll see nothing but pictures of that one Confederate flag that was there and that one Nazi flag that was there. Like
yeah,
you'll see nothing but pictures of that. And then
yeah,
you're on, centrist right leaning Twitter, and you see all these
and you
beautiful pictures of
beautiful pictures.
people with Canadian flags and having a great time feeding each other. And it's just so
Yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing the
yeah, and
difference that you get from the views
oh
that
yeah.
people have.
Yes, and every shot is picked. Like if an editor is cutting a story for your newscast, like every single shot is picked so that you're only going to see like convoy members looking like maybe biker badasses or something, or you're going to see them looking like militias. It's like, well, so what? You mean like so you're wearing a hoodie and you have a beard? Whoopie ding. Like, what does that make you a bad person? It doesn't matter, but we kind of show you like that. Never would you show the families, the barbecues, the bouncy castles. You would never show black, white, brown people coming together, being, no, you never show any of that. We never
Yeah.
showed any of
And it was amazing too, because like I've never seen so many people from different walks of life in Canada get all together in one place. It should have been
it. Yeah.
celebrated by everybody.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
amazing. Lance and
And when
the
we even called it so-called, we called it the
oh, I know the
so-called,
so-called
you
freedom.
know, and every anchor would say that, like as if we're North Korean television.
Yeah, like
The
why we don't call it the
so-called,
so-called the so-called liberal party, because
yeah, it's awful.
so-called democracy that we have. Lance in the super chats for 550 says, watching the real-time distortion of reality convoy streams versus the reported facts, you can never unsee that, and it
Yeah.
changes everything. It really did. It changed everything.
Mhm.
Now I was kind of I felt like a veteran because I was a Ron Paul fan ages ago,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I really I got into economics and stuff because of him. But
Mhm.
I watched him get just completely annihilated by the media complex because they didn't want him to be the nominee for president of the United States in like '04.
Mhm.
And he got lambasted, and he was just a genuine guy, right? And
Mhm.
they tried to label him all the typical stuff, racist and all this garbo. And yeah, I was kind of prepared for it. I watched it happen again with Trump. They
Mhm.
Everybody loved him up until the point that he ran for president and started speaking the truth. And like I said, love him or hate him, you can agree with him or disagree with him. He spoke to what people's concerns actually were. And that wasn't the narrative that they wanted to go with, so they had to get rid of him. And this is the process that they go down, and it's disgusting.
It is, but also Trump was very like, I mean, although he's rich and he's like one of the elites, I would guess. I don't know. He's an outsider to the political system. So when he came in, he's all kind of crass. He's very unpresidential,
Yeah.
right? He's just sort of like the things he says, and you kind of maybe think he's a little. He doesn't talk the talk of the politician talk. He kind of just says things, in that funny way. And he probably seemed like a bit of a redneck or something, and that's why people didn't like him. And he beat Miss Hillary Clinton, where you think, who's going to be more qualified than Miss Hillary? And then you learn a bit about Miss Hillary, and you're like, damn, now we know why she didn't get picked. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want her. And Trump did a lot of smart things that people don't know about. I mean, like a lot of smart things. There's a one podcast, Lex Friedman interviewed somebody named, I think, Andrew Bustamante, who was a former CIA person, and he can explain this better than me. But the CIA and the FBI, or what? Oh no, the FBI, they do reports to the president. The president doesn't have time to hear everything. So you're going to sell the best to the president of what he needs to cover, right? So their jobs are on the line, sort of the CIA guys feeding the president information. And it's all going to be from their bias in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But what Trump did is he hired independents to give him information about things that he wanted to know. So he kind of circumvented the FBI cronies that would normally give him information, and he got his own. And that's a very smart thing to do, because when you're in a system, people are going to feed you information, and you don't know if what you're being fed is true. And that's very smart for him to seek outside information so he can make decisions. And he did a lot of smart things by saying we don't need any more WHO or whatever. Like he kind of got rid of that, or the whatever, the Paris climate agreement. I don't know what else he
the
did,
Paris
but he did
Climate
a lot of
Accord.
things.
He
Yeah,
got rid of
Accord,
that,
yeah.
and
He's like, we don't need this, we don't need that. And maybe he's right. Like we don't need the bloody WHO, an unelected bloody thing funded by the you-know-who's running our lives. We didn't elect them. Don't you be running our lives, you and the WEF and all you people. I don't know. I don't know. We didn't elect you people, right? So I don't know. So he was very smart, although he comes across like a big, sort of womanizing oaf. He's too old for that now, but like he's not half as dumb as people think he is.
no,
He's
not.
And there was no war under him. There was job creation under him. I mean, and maybe he said stupid things like we're going to build a wall. That's kind of
craziest thing. The craziest thing for me out of the whole thing, though, is that they claimed that all the things that they claimed that would happen under Trump happened when Trump got out of the presidency and Biden came in, like World War III.
Yeah.
Possible nuclear
inflation,
war,
poverty, war.
all of these things. Yeah, they're all happening under Biden, and that was the warning. And by the way, nobody moved to Canada. Nobody moved to Canada when Trump got elected.
No, I know. And look that other woman underneath him, the Kamala Harris. She's
awful.
I wouldn't let her babysit my cat. Like, I don't find her to be an intelligent woman at all. Like, she's not that smart. She's really not smart. No. And I think she's drunk all the time or something. And these two clowns are running America.
Yeah,
I wouldn't let them run my household.
Well, it just goes to show you that it's not the presidency that's running America, not when things are running the way they want it to run. Anyway, but hey, we've been going for a good 2 hours and 15 minutes now. So I'm gonna close this out with a couple of super chats. We had Vesper Design jumping in here, buddy over on Twitter. He says poverty is sexist. That's a quote from Justin Trudeau, which is amazing. We got Gerald Nadeau with a 550 super chat saying Trump was nominated for several Nobel Peace Prizes. It was barely covered. I think that says everything. It does say a lot. That's actually true. He's nominated several times because he was the first president to not have a new war since Eisenhower? Like since way back.
Well, that is amazing.
Yeah, he
deserves props for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not know that.
Absolutely. Okay. But yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. But stay on the line because you and we have some things that we're actually still gonna discuss because you wanted to talk to me, pick my brain about some things, and
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
And
I won't go anywhere. And thank you so much for having me on. And this is one of my favorite things to do in life is just chit chat about things going on in life. And I was just thank you so much for having me on. It was a great pleasure.